It is really becoming a circus. My gosh, just let it rest. 6:05, happy Friday. It's great to be wrapping up the week with you on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio, and streaming on the iHeart and TuneIn apps. Pete Hegseth is all over Capitol Hill. This guy, of course, has been tapped by Donald Trump to be the next Secretary of Defense. And he's going around Capitol Hill, and he's trying to convince enough U.S. senators to confirm him when that process takes place next month. And yesterday, I'm watching Pete Hegseth talk to the media. It was probably late afternoon, give or take, maybe 3, 4, 5 o'clock, somewhere in there when I was filling in for the Guy Benson show from 3 to 5. And Pete Hegseth stared at the media and said something that they desperately needed to hear. And that is that the confirmation process has nothing to do with the media. They are a neutered bunch of individuals and bunch of organizations. We learned that very well on November 5. And that is something that when you are caught up in that bubble of Washington, D.C., it's good to get the reminder that the people out there, by the tune of 76 million of us, voted for Donald Trump. Pete Hegseth is going through or will be going through a tough confirmation. But this is nowhere close. Not even in the ballpark of a Matt Gaetz type situation. Pete Hegseth is getting a lot of flack. Why? Well, because of alleged infidelities. Actually, infidelities that he has admitted to. But does that mean that you're not capable of being the defense secretary? It's not defending what Pete Hegseth has ever done in his personal life. But I don't ask U.S. senators to be the morality police when it comes to confirmation hearings. Because I hate to break it to anybody who's a little naive, but if we had the morality police in Washington, D.C., none of these clowns would ever be in the positions that they're in, from the top down across all political parties. But now Pete Hegseth is dealing with, the prior infidelities that he has since admitted to. He's on his third wife. I don't know why that's all that big of a surprise. A Google search would have given you some information on this. And then, of course, there are these drinking allegations of him, partying when he's on the Fox and Friends set, partying late into the night, showing up late to work. But all of those sources are anonymous to individuals like NBC News. Meantime, there are plenty of Fox people who are very much behind Pete Hegseth, and they're on the record about it. So who are you going to trust? The on-the-record people or the anonymous sources who are trying to protect themselves? I was talking to somebody yesterday who is a friend of the show, who is a longtime Fox employee, and they were livid, absolutely livid, about how they felt Pete Hegseth had been treated by the media over the last couple of weeks. So here is Pete Hegseth on Capitol Hill yesterday saying what needed to be said.
I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group, none of you, not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump, who received 76 million votes on behalf and a mandate for change. I answer to the 100 senators who are part of this process and those in the committee. And I answer to my Lord and Savior and my wife and my family. I'm proud to be here. And as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to be standing right here in this fight, fighting to bring our Pentagon back to what it needs to be.
What have your conversation? And as I mentioned to you yesterday, that was Pete Hegseth on Capitol Hill as he goes around meeting with U.S. senators. This is not a Matt Gaetz situation. It's not. All right, the Matt Gaetz allegations were potentially illegal. Pete Hegseth, this thing is about morality. And my goodness, if we start having the morality police run Washington, D.C., the place will be empty by next week. Okay? So let's pump the brakes on that here for a quick second if we could. And Pete Hegseth looking at the media and say, I don't answer to you. Thank you. He doesn't. And Donald Trump is telling him to fight on. Trump didn't do that with Matt Gaetz, right? It became obvious that Gaetz did not have the votes, and Trump's like, all right, cool, we're going to move on. Pam Bondi next up. Thanks, Matt. And then Matt just went, all right, see you guys later. Let me go do some cameos for $100 a pop. Hey, happy birthday, Susie. From your favorite former Congressman, Matt Gaetz. That's what he started doing. That's not what Pete Hegseth is doing, and it's not what he should be doing. He should be standing up and fighting. And the way that they are now trying to do things like tarnish his military service. This dropped last night at 8 p.m. from the Washington Post. I know.
Fake news.
Well, at 8 o'clock last night, the Washington Post wrote this. Bronze stars, like those Hegseth earned, are common among military officers. The Washington Post writes, supporters point to his wartime decorations in declaring him qualified to lead the Defense Department. Military experts say that doing so distorts those medals' significance. I love it. Bring back the experts, baby. There, let's get the experts in, just like we had the health experts during COVID. And, we've always got to find an expert. Just find the experts and call them experts. Election security experts. Health experts. Oh, you mean like Fat Boy Rex Archer?
Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Boy, I love Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, that's a health expert right there. Yep. Guy hasn't walked more than a mile in 25 years, but definitely a health expert. This is just insulting at this point from the Washington Post, but it also doesn't come as a great surprise. They write here, Hegseth's supporters, including the president-elect, have invoked those awards received for wartime service in Iraq and Afghanistan, repeatedly in making the case for his qualifications to lead the U.S. military, even as allegations of sexual misconduct, excessive alcohol use, and financial mismanagement threatened to derail his nomination.
Yeah, Tim Walz, he's got a drawer full of those.
I know. Yeah, he was a military hero.
Well, experts.
Oh, an expert.
Have identified him as such.
Yes. They love Tim. Timmy Tim. Tiananmen Tim. That guy. Yes, he was worthy of being viewed as a military expert and one we should look up to. Pete Hegseth.
Certainly a hero is what. Yeah,
yes, that's right. A hero.
Yeah, that's right. He was in China.
Yeah. Supposedly. But Pete Hegseth with Bronze Stars. Come on. Let's not overblow it.
Those things.
Yeah. Not a gold star, so hey, what's it really worth anyway? If you're somebody in the military, somebody who served this country, and now you've got the Washington Post downplaying Bronze Stars in the way that they are in this article last night, where they write, military experts say there's a mistaken belief among much of the American public that the Bronze Star is a rarefied award exclusively for battlefield heroics, which has distorted and inflated its significance in many cases. They write, the U.S. military issues two versions of the award, one with a V device denoting valor in combat, and the other for commendable job performance on deployments. The Bronze Star listed in Hegseth's official records fall into the latter category according to his official service records. Such awards were issued somewhat liberally throughout the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, experts say. Oh, my gosh. So now we're downplaying military awards to diminish Pete Hegseth as the Department of Defense nominee. Boy, if that's not gross, I don't know what is on a Friday morning. 913-408-7957. I mean, if you're somebody who served this country and you hear them downplaying Bronze Stars in the Washington Post, how does that make you feel? I mean, I didn't serve. I know this much. You got a Bronze Star. I don't care who you voted for. I'll respect the heck out of you for that because it's more than I did. And it's more than the vast, vast majority of us have done when it comes to serving this nation. Meantime, I told you there was a piece coming, a hit piece coming on the mayor of Kansas City, and it did drop yesterday. So I tipped you off on that, and we'll tell you what it had to say. All coming up on a busy Friday morning. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. Well, yesterday I told you right here on KCMO that there was some story about Mayor Lucas that was going to come out that was not going to be a flattering one, and I was starting to hear some rumors about it. And what I knew on good authority is that this story was going to include information about a poll that was commissioned in Clay County suggesting that Clay County residents had zero interest in funding a new baseball stadium for the Royals, right? So this story did come out yesterday, and that was part of the story. It was not the main story, but it was a part of the story. It came out in the Kansas Reflector. Allie Kite, who used to work at the Kansas City Star, writes here. Kansas City mayor accused of skirting city gift ban by using nonprofit to pay for travel. She reports here it cost $23,518 for Mayor Lucas, a top aide, and 2 police officers on his security detail to attend the Super Bowl in Phoenix last year. The day after the game, the cost was covered by a $24,000 check from the Heavy Constructors Association, a politically connected trade group. Neither the price of the trip nor the donation were ever made public. The report says that's because the mayor and his now former chief of staff ran the spending and donation through the Mayor's Corps of Progress for a Greater Kansas City Incorporated, a nonprofit established 50 years ago to help attract economic development to the city that is not required to disclose its financials. Receipts, emails, and other documents obtained by the Missouri Independent show that over the course of Lucas's first term in office, the Mayor's Corps spent more than $35,000 on Chiefs tickets, hotel stays, flights, and dinners. Well, I respond to this very sarcastically.
Talk about a bombshell.
Wow. How did you think the mayor was getting to the Super Bowl? I mean, I think the guy makes like $140,000 a year, which is very good money. I'm not taking anything away from him on that front. But you are not going to buy Super Bowl tickets for thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, making $140,000 a year. You just, it's not in the budget unless you're saving for years on end for that kind of a deal.
Flights to Germany.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yes. I mean, you're just not doing that. It's a great salary. It's a great income. But, that is not something that the mayor is doing on his own dime. And you may recall that we talked to the mayor of Kansas City about this right before the Super Bowl earlier this year. And we actually got a mention in this article. Yeah, that's right. Yes, we did. And they used a quote from one of our interviews with Mayor Lucas from February before the interview. They write here in the Missouri Independent, the mayor also told conservative talk radio host Pete Mundo in February that the Mayor's Corps had financed his Super Bowl trips. Lucas said on this show, that's how we've done past ones, and as always, no cost on my travel to the taxpayer. So I don't know what the story is here. It's not that I'm sitting here being like, yeah, I'm looking to defend Quentin Lucas on this, but I'm just like, okay, what did you guys think was going on? You think he was going out of pocket to pay his own way to Germany to go to back-to-back Super Bowls? My attitude is as long as the taxpayer wasn't on the hook, then this is sadly politics as usual. That's what this is. It's politics as usual. It should not be some great surprise that this is what politicians do. Now, you don't have to like it, and certainly I get it, right? It does create, when you have these PACs that are set up, it does create a conflict of interest. Where the mayor has a PAC, he can't technically tell the PAC what to do, but we all know there's a wink, wink, a nod, nod, and the PACs are funded by people who want to have political influence, and they can have more political influence through a PAC because there's no limits on donations, which there are to individual political candidates, and everyone just gets to kick their feet up, and, we all know the game. So I get it, like for a reporter, they think this is some big scoop, but it would have been a scoop if somehow there were taxpayer dollars involved. But if it's just people of political influence and power wanting to buy more of that at City Hall, and there's nothing illegal about it, then why are you surprised this is happening, John?
Would have been a scoop if he invented the ruse, right?
Yes. If he invented, exactly.
Not the only guy, to your point, it's commonplace.
This thing has been around for 50 years. The Mayor's Corps of Progress was established by Richard Berkeley, but later lapsed. Lucas's predecessor, Mayor Sly James, reestablished the organization when he took office in 2011. According to the Mayor Corps of Progress bylaws, it was created to hold, attract, develop, and encourage the economic development of the Kansas City community. Oh, come on. Come on, don't be stupid. You all know what that means, right? People could donate to it. They could buy some political influence. And we'd say, yeah, rah, rah, Kansas City, economic development. Woo! That's it. Anytime you see the phrase economic development involved with PACs or organizations, it usually means there's a lot of black slapping and political posturing going on. That's the name of the game. All right? We all get it. We're all on the same page. We're big boys here. We're big girls here. So you tell me, as a Kansas City resident, as a Kansas City taxpayer, is this the thing that you're like, oh, my goodness, oh, gosh.
How dare you?
Are you saying that when you hear this story? Or are you like, I mean, yeah, of course the mayor was not funding his own way to the Super Bowls. Of course he wasn't going to Germany last year to watch him play the Miami Dolphins out of his own pocket. We know that. I always understood that. And the other thing that's important to add here, if there's something that I've always questioned about the mayor's travels to Chiefs games, it would be this, and this is because it came to me from folks in law enforcement. Why he takes cops to other cities where they have no jurisdiction, I don't understand. And that is something that law enforcement has brought up to me as well. They don't get that either. He brings these guys to Phoenix like they're not personal bodyguards, right? They're cops from Kansas City. They don't really have any jurisdiction over what happens in Phoenix. So why you bring them there? Well, that really is something that is questionable at best. That's more offensive than the Heavies constructor folks deciding that they are going to give money to a PAC to cover his travel when we all know that those people are constantly trying to buy political influence at City Hall because they want to get jobs that help their people and that fund the top of the organization. It's politics. I don't even know if it's dirty politics. It's just politics. Especially on the local level, where when you've got the right influence and you've got the right people in your back pocket, you will get multi-million-dollar jobs that others may not have a chance to get. So that's a little behind the scenes on this deal, but you can tell me, and I'll be popping on the text line as well here to take a look at this and understand whether or not you're really offended by this whole thing. Pete, you can call it legal all day. It's still sneaky and underhanded. Okay, yeah, and maybe that says more about the actors involved here. That doesn't surprise me one bit. Like, you have heard the mayor on this show every week for years, right? 913-408-7957. I'll get to you and how you're feeling about this morning, along with an explosive back and forth on Capitol Hill. We'll get to it all this hour. Pete Mundo on KCMO. So is this really the bombshell story?
Talk
Whoa.
about a bombshell.
That Mayor Lucas, a top aide, and 2 police officers on a security detail spent $24,000 to attend the Super Bowl in Phoenix last year. And the day after the game, the cost was covered by a $24,000 check from the Heavy Constructors Association, a politically connected trade group. Is that the big bombshell they want to make it out to be at the Missouri Independent? Or is that like, no, I expected that, and as long as the taxpayer's not footing the bill, then I'm A-okay. This is the story I mentioned to you yesterday. Something was coming out on the mayor when it came to spending and his PAC and where the money was going and how it was being spent. And I knew it had something to do with sports. There was also a mention here about the poll that was commissioned in Clay County for the Royals moving up there. And it turns out that the United We Stand PAC spent $9,500 on that poll. And that poll, of course, is tied to Mayor Lucas. And you would have to be naive to not believe that a PAC led by Mayor Lucas, or at least connected to Mayor Lucas, would commission a poll on the Royals in Clay County that would show the Royals should not consider that move because the taxpayers wouldn't fund that move. 913-408-7957. Larry's on KCMO. What's up, Larry? Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, I agree with I don't think it's a blockbuster, but I do think it's relevant news because sometimes these conflicts of interest can open Pandora's box to slippery slopes of bid rigging and that kind of thing. And so I think they do need to be exposed and covered. And
I totally agree. I totally agree. I'm glad we know this. I'm with you there, Larry. If we had, a Kansas City Star newspaper that actually reported and did more work like this, we'd be better off just to have full transparency, right? And I think that's what you're talking about, getting full transparency.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And as far as on the PAC paying for the county assessment as far as Royals votes, I think if I was him, I'd be doing the same thing. And if you do the survey, and if it comes out in your favor, well, then you publish it. If it doesn't come out in your favor, then you just throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. You can. That's so true, Larry. Thank you, man. You can burn through $9,500 with your PAC and then be like, yeah, that poll didn't come back the way I wanted it to, so no one has to know about it, John.
Said the Kamala Harris campaign.
Oh, that's great. Yes, you are absolutely right. So I agree with Larry. It's good to know. I'm not saying I don't want to know this information. And I'm not saying you shouldn't want to know this information. But I'm also saying it's not like something that if you follow local politics and largely how it works, and not just here in Kansas City, but anywhere in the country for that matter, it's not some big shock. And it should also not be a surprise that Mayor Lucas is involved with a PAC, because what I have been hearing, and I believe this is especially true now that he is basically not going national, at least for the time being. Kamala Harris lost, thank goodness, and that means Mayor Lucas is not going to get a job with that administration. I suppose he could start cozying up to Trump a la Eric Adams in New York, but something tells me that is not going to happen. So since he doesn't have a way to get to D.C. right now, what I have been hearing is that he may and likely will be interested in playing kingmaker in Kansas City area politics, which means Missouri, Kansas City, Jackson County, and yes, even Kansas, by way of this PAC. And that could be something that Quentin Lucas does to play kingmaker. I mean, he went 1-0 this past election. He got his chosen prosecutor, Melissa Johnson, in to replace Gene Peters Baker coming up next month. So that may have been one way that he starts to basically peddle influence, political influence, and pick his preferred candidates in and around the Kansas City metro. So it's something to watch, because that PAC is definitely going to continue on in large capacity and is going to play potentially a big role in our area politics. And it could impact Kansas as well as Missouri, as well as Jackson County, as well as Kansas City proper. So those are all things that are more likely, especially in the wake of the Kamala Harris loss, and how that could impact us here locally in Kansas City. 913-408-7957. Jim is on KCMO. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, Pete, is there a certain limit on a gift that he can receive? I mean, our Congress people have to report all gifts. Would that not be a gift rather than a political deal? Because going to the Chiefs games, you're not doing that. Now, remember in Germany, he did the economic deal at the same time he was in Germany.
Yeah, I think Evergy paid for that one, if I'm not mistaken.
Remember Bayer, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I was going to Germany for a game or something.
Yes. I think you're right there,
or
John.
happened to be a game at the same time.
Yeah, because like Mike Kehoe was there too, and Laura Kelly and Kathy Nelson. They all went to that game. But here's what I would say. Jim, since this was paid for and covered by this PAC, I don't think it really would count as some kind of donation to Lucas. That's where these PACs can kind of do things that official campaigns cannot do. And that's why the PACs are just, I don't know, they're a little sketchy in general, because basically it allows dark money to come from wherever. and you can do things that you just can't do when you're talking about campaign dollars.
Okay, but they didn't pay for it till after the fact, not prior to. It wasn't a gift prior to. It was after, whenever they would say, well, you spent $24,000, now we're going to cover that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's a gray area, and I'm not defending the mayor on this. I just think that if they gave the money before and they said, hey, use this for travel, or if they give it after and they say, hey, use this to reimburse the travel, does it really matter, or are we splitting hairs here on that, right?
Well, it's I think it matters to a point, because now you're coming back and saying, well, I stayed at the Hilton rather than the Holiday Inn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess, I suppose. Here's, I mean, listen, I'm not opposed to that at all. I just know with the way these PACs work, and I appreciate the call there, Jim. With the way these PACs work, there's a lot of gray area. And the article itself does not really accuse the PAC or the mayor of doing anything illegal. I mean, I'm looking through the whole article here, and there's nothing about this that notes that it was somehow nefarious how it was done.
This is more just a transparency issue, right?
Yes, that's more of what's being alleged here as I read through the story in the Missouri Independent about Mayor Lucas and getting $24,000 reimbursed from the Heavy Constructors Association to go to the Super Bowl last year. I mean, I always wondered who funded it. The first question was, what is the cost of the taxpayer? The mayor told us on this show that the answer was zero, and then I kind of let it be because I figured something like this was going on. I figured somebody who wanted to buy political influence at City Hall would be funding this trip. And whether it was a direct funding of the trip, whether they were the guests of the mayor, air quotes, whether it was them funding money to a PAC and the PAC reimbursing, whoever put the $24,000 up front for the travel, I figured it was something along these lines. The transparency or lack thereof is the story, but not really anything beyond that. On the text line, 913-408-7957, as we roll through the morning here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. As always, we're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Hey, Pete, as long as Mayor Q got his Trump watch, no big deal. That's very good.
Such a nice man.
That's a very good point. I don't know if he got his Trump watch or not. Maybe Trump will give him half off one of the Trump watches. Especially since the mayor was on the show yesterday bragging about the ratings for the Hallmark movie that he made a quick cameo in. I haven't seen the movie yet. Did either of you guys see it?
I did. I contributed to the ratings.
Oh, you did? Okay. Now, Mayor Q, is it a brief cameo?
Oh, yeah. It's just really good there. Oh, hey, Mayor Q. And then he just kind of waves.
So that's it. So it's really like Donald Trump in Home Alone 2.
Yes. It's almost the exact same thing.
Oh, that's so. Quentin Lucas's Hallmark movie cameo is the equivalent of Trump in Home Alone 2.
Yeah, I would say that.
Wow. Oh, that's great. He secretly loves Trump, I think. Oh, man. All right. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, there was an explosive interaction on Capitol Hill that resulted in two grown men screaming at the top of their lungs at each other yesterday, and you are not going to want to miss it. We'll share next on 95.7 FM KCMO. I do stand corrected on something. Mayor Lucas makes $163,000 a year. It was $141,000 a year, and then the city council elected to give themselves raises last year. So, but still at $162,000, I never thought the guy was going to the Super Bowl for, tens of thousands of dollars when you talk about tickets and travel, airfare, hotel. I never thought that was something that he was going to be doing out of his own pocket. I didn't. And that was something some of you were asking on the text line. Pete, how much does Lucas make again? $163,000. It was $141, and they bumped themselves up. Must be nice to vote yourself a raise. I think John, Mark, and I should start doing that. What do you guys think?
Try that around here?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll work, but we can give it a shot, I suppose.
We get 3 votes for sure.
Yeah, definitely got 3. We'll go to the boss and say, hey, listen, the 3 of us just voted for our own raises. So if that could start the new year, That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old Office Space, little Lumberg there for you. That would be great. Something tells me it's not going to happen. Just like those goobers over in Johnson County. The county commission voted for a nice little 23% pay hike last week. After the election, of course.
Last thing I need is for the glitch to fix itself like in Office Space.
Oh, that's very well done there. Very well done. So we'll keep tabs on this Mayor Lucas story. Patrick Toohey was quoted in it, our good buddy over at the Show Me Institute. And here is what he said to the Missouri Independent. He said, this appears to be an organization that's really set up just to entertain themselves, entertain the mayor, and probably a whole bunch of lobbyists. Toohey agreed the solicitation of the donation looked like an attempt to get around the city's gift ban. He said, if it would have been illegal or unethical to give the money to the mayor and his chief of staff to travel, it seems to me that it's questionable to do the same thing through a third party. Bridget Williams, executive director of the Heavies Constructors Association, said, quote, we gave the money as a request, and we rely on the mayor to spend it wisely. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Yes, it stinks. Yes, it's questionable ethics. All of that is true. But if you're surprised by any of that in Kansas City politics, well, I do have beachfront property in Salina to sell you. Meantime, speaking of questionable ethics, let's go back to Washington, D.C. for the next few minutes. How's that sound? Where there was a screaming match that took place on Capitol Hill between acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe and Republican Representative Pat Fallon. So this was about the Secret Service, how it handled itself after Donald Trump was nearly assassinated back in July. And what happened here is Pat Fallon presents a photo on Capitol Hill that shows the acting director who took over from Kimberly Cheadle. Remember that name? She was the one who resigned in disgrace after the Butler County near assassination. So Representative Fallon presents a photo showing the acting director standing near Donald Trump, the incoming president, without a protective agent in view. And this was on September 11th when you had Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, all there at Ground Zero on the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. And Pat Fallon is basically pointing out here that it looked like they were once again neglecting the best security possible for Donald Trump in that situation. So Pat Fallon starts asking the acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe, about why it didn't look like Trump had proper security at September 11th anniversary events, which was 2 months after the guy was nearly killed. And then all of a sudden, what you'll hear happen here is Ronald Rowe start making it about how he was down there at Ground Zero 23 years ago and how dare you try to politicize 9/11. But I don't believe that's what Pat Fallon was doing here.
Special agent in charge of the detail. Were you the special agent in charge of the detail that day?
Actually, let me address this. Could you please, staff, leave that? Oh, no, leave that one up with the circle around me. Thank you. So actually, Congressman, what you're not seeing is the sack of the detail out of the picture's view. And that is the day where we remember the more than 3,000 people that have died on 9/11. I actually responded to Ground Zero. I was there going through the ashes of the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. I was there at Fresh Kills.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you, Congressman. Were you the special agent in charge?
To show respect for a Secret Service member that died.
Horse hockey! Don't worry, Mark. There's nothing bad in here. I've listened to it. I've watched it multiple times. It's kind of like watching my toddlers fight with each other sometimes. Pat Fallon just out of nowhere, I didn't ask you about that. It's like, okay, all right, I get it. They both got a little worked up. Something happened yesterday morning that pissed these guys off. But what you heard there also was a great filibuster from the acting Secret Service director. And with all due respect, the Secret Service folks at the leadership level, not the everyday men and women in the Secret Service, but the folks at the highest levels of the Secret Service, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear about, well, you're going to respect us. No, you guys, frankly, have done an awful job. And we still don't have the answers that we need from Butler County, which it's amazing it's taken this long. But Ronald Rowe getting on his high horse and saying, I was down there at ground zero. Okay, great. I mean, I get it. I'm sure that's an emotional thing to think about. I grew up 15 miles outside of Manhattan. Like, I get it. We all have some story about 9/11. But what Pat Fallon was doing was not trying to politicize September 11th. He was asking you a simple question. Did you have the right kind of security in that setting for, at the time, Republican nominee Donald Trump at ground zero 2 months after the guy was nearly assassinated? And what you hear from the acting Secret Service director is, someone who served, don't you dare politicize September 11th. He wasn't doing that. But, man, it kept going.
Don't 9/11. That you're trying to be.
Do not invoke 9/11 for political purposes.
Oh, I'm not. I'm invoking this.
You are, sir.
Gentlemen,
and you are out of line.
I would like to ask him a question. Please.
You are out of line, Congressman.
Order.
You're bullying me. I am an elected member of Congress, and I'm asking you a serious question, and you are playing politics.
I am a public servant who has served this nation, and
you won't answer the question.
On our country's darkest day.
Committee will come to order.
Committee will come to order.
I'm asking you serious questions for the American people, and they're very simple. They're not trick questions. Were you the special agent in charge that day?
No, I wasn't. I was there representing the United States Secret Service, sir.
Mr. Fallon, your time's expired.
It did not affect protective operations.
You know why you were there? Because you wanted to be visible, because you are auditioning for this job.
I was there to pay respect for a fallen member of this agency.
You endangered President
out of line, Congressman.
Vice President.
All right. Why are we screaming, fellas? Come on. Boys.
Somebody got the View on?
Why are we doing this, guys? Relax. I do think Pat Fallon, the Republican from Texas, lost his cool a little bit there. A little more than he needed to. Okay, it's like, buddy, relax. I know you may not like this guy who's running the Secret Service. I don't think that the people at the highest levels of the Secret Service deserve the benefit of the doubt based on what they've done or not done the last 4 to 5 to 6 months. But my goodness. All right, let's all pump the brakes here. I don't know if they were going like WWE, if this was kind of a show. I'm not sure what was going on, but it kept pouring on. And it didn't need to be that way. It shouldn't have been that way. Got to be able to all pump the brakes a little bit here. 913-408-7957 on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Give me a number, guys. Where do you want me to go? Okay. Hang on. You each gave me different numbers. All right, Wes, go. You got a minute.
Yeah, Bongino on his show said what had happened was that Roe was where he was standing should have been where the special agent in charge should have been. Okay, and the reason that's important is because you've got the president, the vice president, and the guy running for the job, Trump, right? All three you've got two people running for it and POTUS. All three big targets, right?
Yeah.
If something were to happen, that guy who's trained and knows all the evacuation plans is the guy leading the effort, and Roe did not have that ability to do that.
And that's what, yes. And Roe is saying there that I was not there leading the Secret Service in that position that day. I was there just to represent the Secret Service, and that's what sent Fallon off, because the person in that specific spot should have been on the job, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And what the point was, how do you think Trump got shot in the head?
Yeah.
Because you guys weren't doing your job, and here you're doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
And like you said, Pete, has anybody been fired yet?
No.
Kelly got shot, back in July?
Yeah. Got to run, Wes. You're right, though, man.
Okay.
I mean, it's crazy. I hope they keep that investigation going. Going to talk to Kendall Gammon about a little Sunday night football. That's coming up. Busy 7 o'clock hour next. Well, I told Mark, I said, come back and bump back with one of my oldest daughter, Claire's, favorite songs, and she's been digging the Village People. I can't imagine why lately. And Macho Man rolling back on KCMO Talk Radio. And let's say hi and wish a happy birthday to my oldest daughter, Claire. She turned 6 today. A lot of noise in the background. Claire, happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you, Dad.
How's everything going there at the house? How'd you feel when you woke up on your 6th birthday?
Good, and I opened Nanny's present.
Oh, good. Very nice. You already got some presents there. Very cool. Very cool. Did you see the card I left you there on the kitchen table?
Yeah.
Yeah? Did you like it?
We got powdered. Yeah. We got powdered donuts for breakfast.
Oh, Mom hooked you up with some powdered donuts. Very good.
Daddy, we got selfie dinner hands, Ryan.
Oh, okay. All right, Chloe, it's not your day. Hang on there. Let's let the birthday girl celebrate. Thank you very much for the peanut gallery in the background there. Very well done. All right, so you had donuts, and then what are you doing for lunch? What's the plan for lunch?
You're coming to my school and bringing Chick-fil-A with Mommy and Chloe.
Yes, you're right. And Charlotte, we don't want to leave the baby at home, right? We can't let Woody watch the baby.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the whole gang is going to be there. What do you want from Chick-fil-A today?
French fries and chicken nuggets.
French fries and chicken nuggets. Okay, I think we can make that happen. All right, very good. And then you've got a little birthday party tomorrow morning, right? You excited for the birthday party? Are you excited for the birthday party tomorrow, Claire?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, tomorrow's a big day. We're looking forward to it. And have a great day at school. Enjoy it, okay? And I'll see you for lunch.
I can see you.
All right, love you, Claire.
Bye.
See you, girls. Bye.
Bye, Dad.
Bye. Love you. See. Oh, okay. All right. See ya. Bye. All right. There you go. A lot going on there.
I think her donut was getting stolen.
Yeah. Well, this is where I come for peace and quiet, in case you couldn't tell.
I say it all the time. You got to go to work to get away from it all.
Oh, man. It's crazy, though. 6 years ago. Becoming a father for the first time, and now there's 3 of them hanging around. So we got big plans today. We woke up 1 month ago today, and we got some of the greatest content we could ever imagine getting. I want to just celebrate and have some fun on a Friday with this. I went back and I dug up the audio from the morning of November 6th. Of course, we found out on November 6th that Donald Trump was going to be the next president of the United States. And just for old time's sake, felt like a fun thing to do on a Friday. Here's some of the greatest hits over the next couple of minutes from MSNBC in the early morning hours of 1 month ago today, November the 6th, as we sit here on December the 6th.
And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Swifties. She had the Beehive. You could not have run a better campaign.
In Western Europe and in the UK and in the Middle East, people are waking up to this.
Oh, and they are.
I've gotten people from Western Europe who are extraordinarily alarmed and terrified.
May I reiterate, there are 2 of the 7 swing states that have been called by NBC News right now, which is Georgia and North Carolina. None of the other 5 states have been called. At this point, you can see this is the battleground states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the so-called blue wall. None of those states called by NBC News. In the swing state of Pennsylvania, NBC News now projects that presidential contest has been won by Donald Trump. It presents an insurmountable future here for Kamala Harris and for the Democratic ticket. Let's watch as Trump takes the stage in Palm Beach, Florida.
We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Boy, it's going to be a real tough speech for her.
Oh, man. And it was a real tough speech for her the following day at Howard in Washington, D.C. That was 1 month ago, almost to the hour, that MSNBC had to cover what was a historic night. Well, President-elect Trump has just doubled down on his endorsement of Pete Hegseth for defense secretary. This came out in the last 20 minutes On his Truth Social, Donald Trump writing, Pete Hegseth is doing very well. His support is strong and deep, much more so than the fake news would have you believe. He was a great student, Princeton, Harvard educated, with a military state of mind. Is that like a New York state of mind? Billy Joel? He will be a fantastic, high-energy Secretary of Defense. I don't know if that's a typo or literally the word defense is in there twice. One who leads with charisma and skill. Pete is a winner, all caps. And there is nothing that can be done to change that. Pete Hegseth just shared that on X and said, thank you, Mr. President. Like you, we will never back down. Okay, well, here's what I would say right now about Pete Hegseth. The way that some U.S. senators on the right and the left are playing morality police is pretty gross. If there is a group of people who have no business playing morality police, it's anybody in Washington, D.C. This is not Matt Gaetz 2.0. It never has been. The rumblings, rumors, and reporting around Matt Gaetz was about illegal behavior. With Pete Hegseth, it's about morality. He's on his third wife. Nobody should be shocked that he wasn't faithful. All that took was a quick Google search. Now, in a perfect world, is the Department of Defense leadership somebody who maybe was married once and has been faithful to one woman during that marriage? Sure. Is that the reason you should not become the defense secretary? No. And that's true whatever your political party is. If we're going to suddenly have the morality police running Washington, D.C., nobody's going to be in charge. Because the moral compass of most of these individuals, and I'm speaking broadly here, is, well, not all that impressive. That's part of what leads them to the swamp. But it's strange to me that you have somebody like Joni Ernst, a Republican from Iowa, right up to our north, who yesterday went on Fox News and said, I don't know about this guy, Pete Hegseth. I'm not a yes yet on Pete Hegseth's nomination.
Okay, it doesn't sound on your answer that you've gotten to a yes. If I'm wrong about that, correct me. And if that is the case, it sounds to me as if the hearing will be critical for his nomination. Am I right about that?
I think you are right. I think for a number of our senators, they want to make sure that any allegations have been cleared, and that's why we have to have a very thorough vetting process. And that's why I was happy to sit down with Pete and have that conversation with him yesterday. So again, all I will say at this time is that we did have a very thorough discussion over a number of those issues, and the vetting will continue, I am certain, through the next month or so until we approach that hearing date.
Get off the high horse, Joni Ernst, would you please? And how about this? How convenient that there were reports yesterday that Joni Ernst is being considered as a backup option for Pete Hegseth to run the Department of Defense. Now, she's a veteran as well. Yeah, Joni Ernst emerges as Hegseth backup with defense nomination in limbo. Who do you think might have planted that story? Dare I say, Joni Ernst or somebody in her inner circle? These people are driven by their own power and their own ego in large part. That is what appears to be going on here. Now, as for Pete Hegseth, well, listen, he went on Megyn Kelly's podcast this week, and he noted that, yes, he is a flawed individual and he has made mistakes in his personal life. But here's what he had to say about his own redemption.
The flurry of allegations about your personal life. And I think it's admitted, at least in your divorce proceedings, that you did cheat on your first two wives. You're on your third marriage to Jen, a former colleague of my own at Fox, and yours too. And your hookup with this woman in Monterey happened when you were with Jen. So that's 3, right? And there are a lot of women at home and men who will be like, it's a no, right? He's too much of a serial cheater. Like, how can we put a guy in this position who's a serial cheater? So is that a fair characterization of you?
I think it was a fair characterization of me before I truly was changed by Jen and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I mean that. I mean, people cannot believe that if they don't want to.
And he's right. The people that want to believe that are going to believe that. The people who don't want to believe that are not going to believe that. And that's fine. You can pick or choose whether or not you want to believe Pete Hegseth when he says that. All I know is it's got nothing to do with the job. And that's not defending Pete Hegseth being a serial cheater. He's admitting to it. He literally said, yeah, that is a fine way to characterize me as at one point in my life. It's not defending that guy and who he was. It's about how relevant is this when you're talking about Senate confirmations of nominees. If someone's not qualified for a job, yeah, okay, that's a conversation worth having. But don't forget the current guy, Lloyd Austin, who's done an awful job, who oversaw one of the most embarrassing moments in American foreign policy history, and that would be the withdrawal from Afghanistan. He got confirmed 70-30. Merrick Garland got confirmed with ease. And Pete Hegseth, who, yes, cheated on multiple wives, and no one's here to endorse that or support that, is now the guy who may not make it. Matt Gaetz, that was a different story. You were talking about allegations of, underage girls and drugs and things of that nature. This is different. And you can defend Pete Hegseth based on the process that he has to go through while not defending what he has done in his personal life. In a perfect world, is the defense secretary somebody who maybe has a cleaner personal life? Sure. Is it the thing that should break a nomination? Absolutely not. J.D. Vance just putting up on social media as well. Led by President Trump, we're fighting for Pete Hegseth. We're doing so because Pete Hegseth will fight for our troops. For too long, the Pentagon has been led by people who lose wars. Pete Hegseth is a man who fought in those wars. We've got his back. So there you go. That's just posted by J.D. Vance on KCMO Talk Radio. Randy, you're on KCMO. What's up, big fella?
Yeah, hey, if the reporting is correct, Joni Ernst had an affair while she was deployed and wrecked her own marriage. So that's the end of the discussion on that. The other thing is, too, there's a song that I listen to that says, take me to the brig so I can see the real Marines. And that's where Hegseth's kind of in the brig. But those are the men that will not back down no matter what. So,
Yep, there you go. Thank you. The Joni Ernst, listen, she has said that allegations by her ex-husband that she had an affair with a subordinate while serving the military are not true. Once again, I don't know what is in that situation. I don't know what isn't. All I know is none of us are pure. None of us are perfect. Some are more flawed than others. But if we are going to now have nominations become digging into somebody's moral compass and then having U.S. senators determining whether or not they are morally capable of doing a job, man, that is not the role of the U.S. Senate here.
And yet someone with clean virtues would be considered naive and unqualified.
Yeah, well, that's true as well.
You took the opposite. So where are we here?
Yeah. 913-408-7957. Bert's in Polo, what do you got for me on Pete Hegseth there, Bert? Go ahead, big fella.
Hey, I'm just going to say this. For these people to sit there and put this man down whenever he went to tours of combat, these people wouldn't even know what it's like to be shot at. I don't even know what it's like to be shot at. He should be accepted just for that,
Well, listen, obviously you want somebody, it's good to have somebody who has been through the wars, literally and figuratively, like Pete Hegseth, and obviously his service is admirable. Is it the reason he should be confirmed? I don't know, but here's what this is more about, Bert. Donald Trump just got 76 million votes, and if nothing else, Republicans should be like, you know what? I'm not saying he can do whatever he wants, but unless you've got something egregious, then just confirm his nominees. Why are we making this such a sideshow? Confirm the guy. I mean, if it's Matt Gaetz, I get it. But this is just a big nothing for the media to run with here because it's a pretty slow time of year between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's it.
Well, at least he's not asking about my white inner rage, so that's good.
Well, and if also I'll say this, Bert, thank you. If you think he's ending or if you think the media will end with Pete, I mean, they're then going to go for Tulsi. Trust me, RFK, they haven't even gotten to him yet, right? Pete is actually a hard one. I think if they can get rid of Pete, then they will be emboldened to basically try to take out, figuratively speaking, of course, every single nominee, or at least a lot of them, including some of the more controversial ones, air quotes controversial. Because there was a Morning Consult poll that came out yesterday that showed all of Donald Trump's picks so far for cabinets are all above water with the American people. All of them are approved by more of the American people than they are disapproved by the American people. So despite the media insisting that, man, you can't, there's no way you could appoint this guy. Well, that's not where the American people are at. And Pete Hegseth made that very clear yesterday when he was on Capitol Hill and he looked at the media and he said, I don't answer to you.
I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group. None of you, not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump, who received 76 million votes on behalf and a mandate for change. I answer to the 100 senators who are part of this process and those in the committee. And I answer to my Lord and Savior and my wife and my family. I'm proud to be here. And as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to be standing right here in this fight, fighting to bring our Pentagon back to what it needs to be.
There you go. That was Pete Hegseth yesterday on Capitol Hill as he was pushing back, and good for him pushing back on a lot of the nonsense that is coming out of there right now. And I think it's largely media-driven. Like, there is no senator who has said, at least Republican senator, who has said, I'm not voting for Pete. That person does not exist right now. I think it was very obvious with Matt Gaetz he wasn't going to make it. But this is not that. And that's why Matt Gaetz was more or less happy to go. He didn't talk about fighting. Trump was like, all right, Matt, thanks for trying on the Pam Bondi. They both handled it very differently than what you're seeing right now, where Trump keeps saying, Pete's my guy, fight. Pete's like, I'm in this thing. I'm talking to people. I'm interviewing with folks. And that is not how it was done with Matt Gaetz. J.D. Vance now saying on social media here in the last 15 minutes or so that Pete's our guy. So they're standing by him. So I don't care what the media pressure is. I believe he's going to get confirmed. I just think it's much more dramatic than it needs to be.
Well, you got to have somebody in the media, right? Not him. I mean, what are you going to do? Take on Billy Long?
Yeah.
The IRS?
Yeah.
I mean, I said, while all this is happening, other things are going on, right?
Yeah,
so other people are coming through without much confrontation.
I figured they'd go after RFK before they went after Pete Hegseth.
It will, yeah.
They're going to get to him.
Suddenly the Central Park story will be a huge thing again, maybe.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's going to be a total circus. Mm-hmm. You're right about that.
So after Pete, somebody will be next. They've got to have somebody.
Oh,
to
yeah.
your point.
Yeah, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard might be next. RFK might be next. They're going to keep this thing going.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, other people are sliding through into positions.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. There's plenty of people who are going to not have a lot of drama around their confirmation. Like Marco Rubio, there's not going to be any drama there. What are you possibly going to say about Marco Rubio at this point? He's one of the more harmless picks. They're all pretty harmless for the most part, but, you know, they got to drum something up here, right? They got to figure out some way to get some attention on all this. So it's pretty evident that is what is largely going on. And we'll just have to keep tabs on it and see how it all plays out here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. As always, we're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. In 10 minutes, we'll get the market update from Mark Falter and how the markets are reacting to Donald Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary, what they think about these potential tariffs that sound like a lot of bluster. So what are we expecting here as we get into the new year and the markets, which have been on a nice tear since Donald Trump did win the election? Let's go to Paul. He's in Kansas City. You're on KCMO. What's up, Paul?
Hey, Pete, yeah, you're exactly right. They're going after Tulsi Gabbard, the same 100 so-called intel experts that told us the Hunter laptop was a Russian plant are now signed a letter to the Senate saying that she's aligned with Assad and Putin. So this is the same Brett Kavanaugh playbook, and Trump's not going to play it this time. He's going to push it through, and we know it out here in flyover country that Hegseth will bring good culture to the Pentagon.
Yeah, no, I do think that they're standing by this one. Thank you, Paul. Karen's in Kansas City. Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, I think it's interesting that of all the freaks that Biden picked for his cabinet, they announced them as the first gay, the first trans, the first this, that, and the other. And it was a huge signal to anyone to do not say a word about this person because we're going to call you every name that they've called us over the past 8 years. And all I could say is all the names that they have called us over the past 8 years has made every Trump supporter and every American stronger and realize they are so full of it that we don't care. But, yeah, they just think of all those people. They had to have had a history when you look at their lifestyle. They had to have had a history. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, you're right there, Karen. Thank you very much. That is so true as well. They would brag about a lot of Biden's nominees by being the first this, the first that. And instead, what do they do now? Well, they downplay Pete Hegseth's awards that he has received in the military. I'm not kidding.
Common.
Yes, the Washington Post writing a piece about Pete Hegseth and saying, this whole thing about Pete Hegseth and him, being a guy who's got Bronze Stars, those are pretty common, don't you know? The headline last night, Washington Post, Bronze Stars like those Hegseth earned are common among military officers. What's the big deal? Stop overreacting to a Bronze Star. Unreal.